This is the first part of a series where I'll be using controlled explosions in order to push units into specific locations. My inspiration for doing this was watching a matchup between Janus tanks and rocket bots, where the latter tend to fly all over the place. When the Janus missile trajectory is short, the rocket bot is pushed back a little bit. But when the rocket bot tries to run away, and he does that unsuccessfully, he becomes an acrobat. Based on my own empirical observations, I concluded that there are a lot of factors that are being taken into consideration when these simulations happen. And some of them are the explosion force, direction and proximity, the unit's momentum and geometry, and the slope of the terrain in front of the unit, which makes all of these explosions unique. There's also a hidden property that is only available to the engine, which tells him how susceptible a unit is to be pushed around. Usually the lighter the unit, the easier it is to be pushed around. And we don't usually see this because lighter units have low health and they tend to blow up instead of being pushed. But I can demonstrate this by replacing the rocket bot with a pawn. If both of the Genesis rockets hit the pawn, he will explode. So in order for the pawn to be only hit by one rocket, I'll be blocking one of the Genesis turrets. No matter if the explosion concludes into a gentle nudge or a giant leap, in both of the cases, this is a push mechanic that I can use to my own advantage. Here we have several units that have explosive payloads. The Janus and the Powner work very similar, and they're quite useful for lighter units, but if we need to push heavier units, we need more than just one of these units. And this becomes quite expensive, and also we need to synchronize their projectiles, which is a lot easier said than done. And because that, we have some alternatives, and these are the mine layer units. Their mines can be just as effective, if not even more. If we look at the mines descriptions, we can see that all three mines have the same range, but with different damage. That's not the whole story here, and that's not something that we're necessarily interested in. Something that it doesn't say in the description is how they distribute their damage. The light unit does most of its damage on top of it, and it has very little push power. On the other hand, the heavier mine does a lot of damage both on top of it, but as well as near his limits. Also, the heavier mine tends to blow things up instead of pushing them. If we put the heavier mine too close to a unit, that unit will explode. If we put the heavier mine too far away, it will not have sufficient pushing force. So for that reason, the best candidate for pushing units around is the medium mine. Next up, I'll show you some examples and some use cases of the push mechanic. Now we are on a multi-level map Ascendancy. Here we can use the higher elevation to our own advantage by sharing a T2 con with the level below. Another case for the push mechanic is to provide urgent help to our allies. The medium tank is excellent for this job. Because of its high health, it can easily survive explosions, while the high speed allows clearance of the intermediate mountain edges. The same technique can be applied for heavier tanks to some degree. I had more success with the Cortex Tiger tank rather than the Armada Bull, and my assumption is that the culprit was the shape of the unit. In this example, there are two things to note. First, the unit sliding down the mountain can shoot. Secondly, units can be stuck easily and a plat ahead needs to be considered. Sometimes you can get away with shenanigans like this, but it is highly depending on the quality of the edge, and in other places I even tried with 5 mines and I wasn't able to push the unit over the edge. You can also synchronize multiple attacks using a series of push mechanics. Nobody is going to expect 3 medium tanks to land in the back of their base. For the rest of the video, I have prepared a collage of pushing construction vehicles and bots. This can be helpful very early on in the game, instead of relying on transports. The push mechanic works in any direction, as you might see in the following videos.
low power.